Hello everybody! Just a quickie today. An inquisitive viewer watched my upgrading tomato transplants video and wanted to know a little bit more about the air pruning pots that I mentioned that I use for my tomato transplants. So I wanted to show you guys today the difference between a traditional pot and an air pruning pot in terms of root development. So you can just ignore how cruddy these plants look. These have been in these pots not being taken care of for like 2 months. They should have been transplanted back in May, but I wanted to let this one get nice and root bound so that you can really see the difference. So in a traditional pot, there are only a few small openings for water to drain out. And what happens is the roots grow and grow and grow. They have nowhere to go, so they start to curl around, and you see that typical formation that we refer to as being root bound. Now, this is not desirable because once these plants go in the ground, they typically suffer a lot of transplant shock. And this is particularly problematic in larger plants like your trees and your shrubs and even some of your perennials that tend to be in a pot longer. Now, compare that to a plant grown in an air pruning pot. There are all types of different air pruning pots. A lot of times they'll have openings along the sides as well. These do not, and because this plant has been in the container for so long, you can see that it's starting to do some of the root binding up here around the sides. But at the bottom, where these openings are, you see the actual air pruning happening. And what air pruning is basically the plant is sending out its primary roots. Once they get to that bottom of that pot and reach the dry air, they terminate, and instead of continuing to grow and wrap like a typical pot, they send out a lot more feeder roots through that soil mass, and you end up with a stronger, healthier root system. So hopefully you can see the difference when you look at the bottom of these plants. Here we've got the traditional pot. You can tell that's very root bound. And here we've got the air pruning pot where those roots just stopped growing and instead sent out feeder roots through the soil block. So again, what you end up with is a much healthier, more vigorous root system, and this plant is not going to suffer the transplant shock as much, and it's just going to have a much better jump start on life. So Tone Loki, I hope that this fully addresses your questions about the air pruning pots. And again, the specific ones that I'm using are the Anderson band pots. They are a bit difficult to find because as far as I can tell, they only direct sell to nurseries. But sometimes if you go to your local nursery and ask them to get a product like that in for you, they are willing to do it. But there are also plenty of other brands of air pruning pots available on the market. And if you have a favorite, I would love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.